First of all, I'm going to talk about a little bit more high level, where I believe where the industry will go. We will go towards Amazon. That is where we're going. So that means that contractors will structure their information on wall types, windows, flooring, whatever, across all their projects. And this is what we now are doing in Scandinavia. Our contractors understand that they need to control their data so that they have a knowledge of what wall types, what they build. So I'm working with BuildingSmart International and GS1. I don't know if everyone knows what GS1 is. It's they're delivering standards for, maybe you can just, you're from GS1, just to explain what GS1 is. In Spanish.
GS1 es comúnmente conocido para el código de barras, identificación de productos, digamos, el EAN13 de toda la vida para identificar desde una hasta una ventana. Pues un poco es esto, la organización que lo regula a nivel.
So it is, okay. So it is to use the BuildingSmart standards called IFC and another standard called IFD. This is a little bit technical, I'll come back to that. But it is to structure the existing, and now comes the very important part, CEN standards, on the product standards from CEN. So in Spain, the standardization UNE. Can, do we have, how many manufacturers is there today? Up to the hand. Okay, manufacturers, they are using standards to, not always, but it depends on what products you actually use. But if you're manufacturing in Europe, you have something called construction product regulation.
And I know they are very worried, at least in Spain, about this smart CE marking.
Okay, I'm just saying, now I'm talking law, European law. Construction product regulation, low volt directive, machinery directive, REACH for chemicals. All these are regulations. This is European law. So that means that we have standards on how to specify windows, floorings, fasteners across Europe, so we can test products and sell them to market, CE mark. So that's a path how to get products to market in Europe. Those standards is in Spain, delivered by UNE. Sorry, UNE. In Germany, it's DIN. In Norway, it's done in Norway. And we have a common technical language in Europe under the law. So what's very important that architects, contractors, manufacturers, they have the same technical language. But the issue that we have been having in the industry is that we have developed our own technical language. So in SAP for manufacturers databases, people have invented data structured based on what? Have they been reading standards, applying that to the databases? No. So when an architect is sitting specifying, is he reading standards and doing that in specification? No. So the digital path is for an architect and a manufacturer to do the same thing. This is what I will explain. So that means that a machine can read and understand. And that's the digital marketplace. I will explain it a little bit. I have 1 hour, which is a very little time. Normally this takes 2 days. The Cobuilder, I was one of the founders in Cobuilder in 1997. So we are a company which is based in Europe. Mainly, we have been working here, but now more and more things is happening in the east, and we see that a lot of things has happened in the northern part of Italy. So that's where we work. We work a lot with BuildingSmart, and we work a lot with CEN and ISO on standardization. So if there is no standards, and this is what I saw, if there is no standards, we will get nowhere as an industry. So we have to have standards on how to describe information. How to describe information. And these standards is now coming out in December. I will talk a little bit about those standards. It comes from a standardization which you referred to, which was CEN 442 work, which is led by Norway. Okay. So why cannot we have this? Why can't I go online, configure, not my car, but my window? Push a button, order, and I'll get exactly what I want. Why can't we have this? So the issue we have is that all over Europe, people don't have a common language, a common technical language. There's not a machine language that we have agreed upon. And I will now talk about this machine language and this format on how data should be structured. So this applies to building owners, people owning buildings. They could look at this not as purchasing, but I would like to do asset information, facility management, cost calculations, environmental impact like EPD data. So it's the environmental product declarations, so environmental impact. So there's a lot of things that, so this is just a view on the purchasing part. But the data could be used for many, many other purposes. So as an industry, we are down, there's a lot of different ways of telling this to us, but we are at the very bottom. Where, boom. Why are we not digitizing more? Why are we not succeeding better as an industry? Why is the oil industry, the car industry, the bank industry, why are they better? Because they're focused on the data. So if I were to talk to, is there any contractors here today? No, not one contractor. So if you look at how contractors, if you ask a contractor, do you have any data on what you are doing now? Do you have any structured data across your business on what you are doing now? So you will find that a lot of companies, they will say, no, we earn money. So they go with a business model of earning money. So then there is a lot, have you heard about Indicara? A very, very large company now, growing more than anyone. They started a construction company thinking about data. Workflows. They own plumbers, electricians, they own everyone in their company, and they are data-centric, and they think about data. And I know that anyone working in the industry needs to control and have information on what we're planning to do or what we have done. Manufacturers need to have structured data across the countries, linked to SAP, linked to PIM, and out. This is what's needed. I'm working a lot with contractors, clients, and the very large manufacturers. So Knauf is here today. I'm talking to their main office, Wienerberger Group, Tata Steel. All of these companies, they understand that their data is oil. So we have a lot of issues as an industry, and that is due to that it's very siloed, silo. We as an industry are very siloed, and that's an issue. And we will see that it's difficult to earn money. You will see that the industry earns from 0 to maybe 4 or 5% maximum. And this will change. People will earn much, much more when this digital change is now coming. This is a problem. So very often, and this is what I see when we started in the UK 3 years ago, the digital development was very often led by a department. You do some digital stuff, and it's or IT. And this is a very huge problem for companies. What we see now is that this is becoming an urgency for the board. And you will see large companies doing massive investments. You will read about it the next 12 months. You will see more and more. You will see manufacturers working together as clusters, big manufacturers. You will see marketplaces arising. There are two now coming, one in France called Boost Construction Europe, and there is also one in the UK where the government is funding £100 million to develop a platform for walls where manufacturers can deliver their products for walls and so on. So it's a big change. So business strategy is vital. This one. If we look at the time stages, so design, construction, operation and maintenance, end of life. In Europe, there is a lot of different things you need to understand at the same time. That's the problem. So people are mixing things together. So it's very important to take this apart and to understand what we're talking about. So if I go from this end of life, have anyone heard about EU talking about circular economy? Circular economy, okay. Have you heard about environmental strategies? Yeah. So that is two things which is important. So that means that as a contractor, as a client, as a manufacturer, I need to understand what data and information is needed for me to be a part of a circular economy, or to give information so that I can tell you what the footprint, the carbon footprint for this window, for this concrete element, for this whatever. So all of this is data. And very often we seem to think from that end, and we think in this way. But you should think from both ends, because there's a lot of things here. And in the building stages, very often there are now using BIM, there is a BIM execution plan. Have anyone heard about the new Spanish standard called, what was the name of the standardization? UNE/ISO 19650. You got this standard 1 month ago. So this standard, it comes from UK. It's based on something called PAS 1192/2 and PAS 1192. So those standards will affect how we exchange information and how we build our workflows on projects. So our company, we're working a lot in the UK, and there the contractors suddenly they had to go digital within 3 months. And that's like, and because they're used to having projects, you lead that project, you lead that project, and suddenly you have to have one common way of working. And it's a big problem. So the first governmental actor to start using ISO 19650, and maybe, I don't know if you use IFC in Spain or?
Yes. At least I think that the 50% of the public tenders ask for IFC.
Okay, yeah. So then you know IFC.
Yeah.
No IFC. So IFC is digital. ISO 19650 is talking about information exchange. And because I'm now linked to, today I'm more linked to the manufacturers, I will try to lift a little bit towards the contractors also and the clients, but on the manufacturers, that's the main goal. So where is the manufacturer's information needed? And that is where you will see it's needed at an earlier stage than now. Because when you're digital, the manufacturers and the contractors, they will talk together and they will create a path which is automation. That means that the manufacturers will get information much, much earlier. And the route towards manufacturers is much, much stronger on a digital market than the normal market, where merchants are a little bit stronger. Merchants, what is the Spanish word for merchants, like wholesalers, where you sell products? What is the Spanish word for that? Yeah. Yeah. Where you buy plumbing, plasterboards. Yeah. Distributors. Okay. So distributors. So they will become weaker. Manufacturers will become stronger. That's how it is. Because we see that contractors, who do they go to when they want to build buildings? When they want to understand what is the best solution for me, they go to manufacturers. They talk to manufacturers and to say, I'm building 20 schools, 200 projects with housing. I want the best solution for my walls. So then they go to Saint-Gobain. Saint-Gobain says, okay, the best solution for walls is 3 wall types. All these projects. And this is different. So this is now happening in the Nordics. And it will come down slowly to you, this method. What's very important is that the manufacturers in the ISO standard, you distinguish between 3D, that's the geometry of the model. The data, I will talk about that now. It's called data templates for construction objects. So it's a standard, 2 standards arriving in December. And this is documents. Relevant documents either to project or product. So you need to create a path where when you plan, you build exactly what you planned. This is generic, which means it's not product specific. It's generic. It could be that manufacturer or that manufacturer, doesn't matter. This is specific. And when I build it, I have a digital representation. And also on technology, we are working with a lot of different actors. So it's very important not to mix this with machine learning, sensors, things like that. Okay, so this is where the industry is today. I'm showing this just not to provoke, but it's very important because very often people seems to be drawn, when we talk about BIM, suddenly everything is 3D, but it is not. People that are educated know that BIM, and maybe BIM, people say, is it the right word? Should we talk about digital whatever? But I think BIM is a good term, and I think we should use it. But what I'm just warning you against is that every time I'm in discussions, I think it's important to not to only think about the model. We have to think about the model, of course, but it's very important to look at the processes and information and all the different actors, legal requirements, building regulations, environmental impact, chemicals. There's a lot of things that need to be thought of, not only this model thing. So I think that now we have a shift here where we see early BIM is mainly only this. But now what we see is that the combination of the two is the killer. So because that holds quantities, where it is, logistics data, a lot of things is here. But this one is performance data, environmental impact, facility management. That's in the information part, where the two put together makes it work. This is databases. This is models. It's very important. This is SAP or PIM. Issue. We have unstructured data. So why a lot of big companies come to us? Because they have a strategy, they have developed information, but it's their language. No one understands it. So when they look at the data template, suddenly it can be viewed by architects, engineers, contractors, because it comes from standards. So there's an issue with siloed data. And that is where, when we open that data up to the market, then suddenly you have a very, very large market as a manufacturer. Actually, a very large market. So why should we work with standards? So why should we standardize how this information should be structured? It's because we have to plug the model and the information together. That's why we need standards. So this is the existing approach. And to map, if I'm creating information, let's call it a property. Do you have a Spanish word for that?
Atributos o propiedades.
Yeah, okay. But anyhow, I'm calling it a property. If I'm just creating it from my end, I'm an architect. I just write something and I create some type of value. And you do the same. And then I ask these two machines to talk to each other. Can't. So that's the point with standardization, to create machine-readable data using a data template. Okay? So this is a mess, and this opens up a lot of opportunities. And then you need to go the standardization way. And that's when we started this journey, I didn't know anything about standardization. But I think now 4 or 5 years later, we are responsible for this standard. So Cobuilder, we're leading this in CEN 442, work group 4. And France is leading this one. This comes from France. It's called, in France it was a national standard called BIM. Is how to create a property. And they argue very often when, like, it's very funny to hear them talking like, this is not a property. And just, it's interesting to be nerdy. But when you actually understand how important this process standard is, this standard does not apply any data. It just is a process on how to develop information with experts, and the process of what attributes do we need for a property, and this is a little bit geeky. But this has been an ongoing discussion in France with contractors, manufacturers, a lot of different actors. And they are, I mean, in Europe, they are here, and everyone else is here. The issue with Frenchmen, if you're listening in France, the issue is that they quarrel a lot. They don't need 2 committees, they need 10. So, and there's a lot of discussions. So I'm happy where I come from, because we have a quite good way of talking together in the Nordics. So this is the standard on, so these 2 standards, now this one comes out December, I think. This is expected after Christmas. So these 2 standards are being pushed to the market very fast. And this is new to you. Suddenly you have a Spanish standard on how to create properties, a process, and also a standard on how to structure this information. That could be used for purchasing, cost estimations, specifications, anything. And it's a standard. And that is where I've seen this. So Cobuilder, we have made an implementation of those 2 standards called Cobuilder Define. And I've been reading standards for 3.5 years, European standards. And I have 15 people doing that. So I just believe that this is the right way. And it's kind of a bet. But I see that a lot of associations come to us. I see a lot of governments, standardization organizations, manufacturers, clients and contractors. And it's moving very fast. And it's very fun, but it's a lot of work. This is a data template. So the French process, asks you to first read official documents before you start developing. If an architect wants to specify a window, the first thing he has to go is to go to the standards and see, is there any way that I can describe bullet resistance? Yes, it is. So these process standards helps me to and pushes me in the direction of reading standards. So that's one very important thing. And it also is telling me that I can't just put a name. I have to have an author who made it. I have to use a dictionary to get the machine code. I have to have a description. I have to have a date, a revision date if it's revised. I have to have which country translations it's meant for, so that a manufacturer looking at this could have the same data across the whole platform with machine codes. Those machine codes are used by Revit and ArchiCAD and BIM providers and anyone. Anyone can use that to specify and describe. And the funny part of then using a data template is that when you show it to market, everyone says nothing, because yeah, it's the right thing. And that's the funny part, because when you read standards, that is not debatable in Europe. You cannot debate. So digitally then you have a marketplace which is much, much bigger. I can give you a use case on this. We are working with a very large contractor in Nordics, which has 1,500 projects in 4 countries. There's a window manufacturer that we work with that has developed a purchasing route using structured data template for all the windows across all the projects. This is developed into something called LOD stages, level of development, so LOIN now more called. So then the manufacturer gets exactly the information he needs to give a price at the exact time. And he gets this in 2 countries. But then the intelligence question is, you can get it from all 4. This data is the same from all 4 countries, but it's only represented in 2. So that will open up 2 new markets for this manufacturer that he has never been into. And that's an enormous possible, that's an opener for this window manufacturer to become global. That's the Uber of Windows. He understands that it's all about the data and structured data. And it contains a lot of different types of data. So how to create this? So what you start with is that you start, if I'm Hilti, I have, let's say, a screw. So then I'm searching for the European standard. I find the document. In that document, it describes a product type. And it depends on the intended use and a lot of things, but it describes a product, the standard. Then, in that standard, there's a lot of test standards, which is testing. And when we did the harmonization in Europe, there were more than one way of testing things. So there might be 2 or 3 for testing the same thing. So you have 3 ways, and then you have test laboratories. So it's called this. I can't remember the name now, but in Europe we have places where under this standard you can go and test. So I can test it in Germany, I can test it in Italy, I can test it here in Spain, and I get the value. 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, I get the value. Then this value is what I put in my declaration of performance, if this is relevant for the building, for the building called essential characteristics. Then I create this, and the funny part is that this is difficult, but in this dictionary, if this already exists, this test method is put into a dictionary, and if I read another standard and I see the same test method, I just apply it again. Same test method, not for screws, but for some other things. Same test method, same GUID. Then I create the data template. So that's the process. And I need to use experts. So in this process, I have an expert in my company which is doing cost, facility management, environmental impact, or if I'm a manufacturer or an association, experts. I need experts to approve. So anyone which is suggesting anything, someone else which is an expert needs to approve, to say yes. So this is called data governance. I have to have data governance, so that people just don't go in. And this is what we see with manufacturers, that the data governance is not good enough. And also I'm working with some specifying some architects and things like that. So I'm asking, when you create in Revit, when you create attributes, who decides? And on what basis do they decide? And that's where they say, we have no process, we have no one, we just create something. So the marketplace today, via the CE mark, is the standard, European standard. Okay? And we have the same in Spain as in the Nordics. This is just an example. I just want to show you an example. This is for a window, could be any product type. And it can even be applied without any standards. So like facility management data has no standards. Then we very often use what's living in IFC. Because in IFC there is some attributes which is important. But this is from standards. So if I talk about resistance to fire, in Europe we have a test method for that, which has an explanation here, and that has specific values. Okay? So this is the route on how to test resistance to fire for windows. If I'm talking about where I live in Norway, it's windy. Okay? So building regulations, they could say that resistance to wind load in Norway is applicable. You have to have it. And also, you could set a level, class 2. Building regulations, boom. So then, that's the link between the product and the building regulations. And in reality, as we see, there are different ways of testing resistance to wind load. This is the issue the market has today. We are at this level, and we are describing something with not this language, but something we invent. But when we take it from the standard, then we can say that, okay, this is the property and that is the value. And this is the path that this contractor has done. He's gone to the manufacturer saying, what kind of product do you suggest that we use? Then they created a digital path with all the information from the project, where is it, distance from road, whatever. So that I can have kind of a golden thread, so that I can create one template where I can say what purpose do I have. Facility management, okay, then it's only this. So in the ISO 19650 standard, you will see that you need to have a purpose. If you don't have a purpose, don't use BIM. I have a purpose, I want to lower cost, I want to get greener, I want to do something. And this is specification, so this is the project, this is the values, and this is called as designed, which is something else than as manufactured. This is the product. Those two things very often is very important for clients to have. What is the specification for this door? What is the specification for this door? I know it. It's this one. But what is delivered? Something else. Okay, so it's important to distinguish between the two. So what we want is automation. So we want to have this represent the model and everything, all the information the model holds. So the data template is linked to the model. So that means that if I'm a Revit user, I would use Revit, but I will still use a database to do the specification. So I will not use inbuilt parameters in Revit. If you do that, then we can change this. We can take then 1 day with the explanation of issues if I work within Revit with all these attributes, how to export, how to do, what about others, yeah. It's a lot of things. But what you can do is that you can use a data template within Revit and then export that out. So there's a lot of methods where you can, how you can work with this. But the point of this slide is just to say that we're looking towards an automation. It's automatic. We will not use, so I'm just saying that all the salespeople people have in the market is going to spend a lot more time on talking to the clients on how this digital route is developed and maintained. And also on the standards, we need, for the market, we need a way of identifying things. When I'm purchasing, when I buy the product and when I get it to the site, when I am in the, when I'm here now, I need identifiers to link towards the digital twin of something, of this one. So how can I talk to this one? Hello. Hello. I need something here. So if I have a database going in here, and I have for this room an inventory list, and I have a barcode, boom! If I search with that barcode, I can go to a lot of different places, and it opens a digital possibility to purchase this product, and I would know exactly what it is by applying this GS1. The issue with the GS1, this is what we're working with, is doesn't hold all this data which is in the data template. So if any one of you want to join, we have a new meeting in Portugal, a GS1 BuildingSmart meeting on this digital supply chain, which I think is very interesting for contractors, manufacturers, yeah, people that are interested in how this can be developed. So BuildingSmart International is the place to go then, or to contact me. So this is GS1, GTIN, brand, company name, you know the beep, and then you can specify via the data template. Color. So color is not the standard, but there are different color schemas, like NCS, that's just the color schema on how to describe colors. I'll do this one, and then what I want just to use then 5 minutes on the SEN 442 work, and I would like to use 5 minutes on ISO 19650, just to show some slides, just to get things rolling. Okay. Anyone heard about Amazon? Okay. So on Amazon, when you sold things before, you had the spreadsheet where you filled in information. So this is the same approach. You have a manufacturer which has to map their data into a structure. So if a plasterboard manufacturer or a screw manufacturer can do that, can link their database to a marketplace using one defined template. The issue we have as an industry is that we have thousands of standards. So that's why I need a lot of more people read standards. So if a manufacturer now can, from their existing platform here, if a manufacturer then can link this to a template for any product, I will show you how we can make a digital marketplace. And I believe that this will happen, not believe, but I want this to happen because it will make us build greener, cheaper, and with fewer errors. Those three. Greener, cheaper, we will build more roads, more schools, and so on. And we will have few errors. And it will be a direct distribution of information between A and B. This is PowerPoint, so this is not developed. This is how I see the market going. And this follows the standards from SEN 442 work before, the product data template standards. It's just applying that to this. This is not any, so what I'm showing here is not, is outside the BIM model, has nothing to do with the BIM model. I'm creating this as a schema which is flat, it's a database structure. But I use pictures for people to understand. Okay? So let's look at walls. So walls could consist of different products. Those products, when you put them together, there is building regulations. That where very often what you heard about is energy, U value, U value, thermal transmittance, okay. And fire resistance to fire is it's not very common on external walls, but sometimes it is. And then sound, I think that's more common. So if you're close by a road or airport, there is, and then it applies to the wall and to the window and to everything. But for a wall, I'm just talking about the wall. Wall as a use case. So that means that this wall consists of specific products. It's tested. The wall is tested accordingly to the standards that we have in Europe. So we have a common way. So this is the same in Spain as it is where I live. It's not a problem. So when I create this wall, and this is where the contractors, when they get specification, something in their head says that it's this wall. So they read specification, either they go to the subcontractor and say, I want this wall, these walls, here is the drawings. So this wall consists of specific products, and the products also have characteristics. So the screws have characteristics. And it's different screws if we are to take the Hilti case. Depending if it's an internal wall or external wall, it is different products. It is different specification for the products within this wall depending on where it is, which country it is. As I said, in Norway, we are using the same schema, the same standards, but we can set higher, lower. And that is allowed within Europe. But you have to use the standards when you go to market. That's the CE mark. So I don't have time to go into the CE mark, but CE mark is a method on how we can go to market in Europe for any product, let's say. And there are many ways of getting the CE mark. So today, this is done on a project basis. But if I say to you, if we go to the Spanish government and we ask them truly for schools, how many wall types do you have for schools, or how many wall types do you need for schools, internal wall and external walls? How many? I'm not restricting, I'm just asking how many. The answer is that I don't know. I have no clue. So my reply to that would be, you should. And you should know what walls you want to build for schools. So today they give this responsibility to someone. And this has to end. That's the ISO 19650, talking about information, how to build information requirements and things like that. This is a product. This is insulation. So I used to be a marketing director with a Saint-Gobain company called Glava in Norway. And this is a data template for a product, not for a system, for a product. It has performance data, environmental data, geometric data, operation and maintenance data. It can have any data you'd like. So for this product, I have a thermal resistance according to a standard. That's the value, and that's the unit. Reaction to fire. And this is where I see that you have to talk to the manufacturers. It's not like you're sitting specifying something. You talk to the manufacturer, say, for internal walls, what is the best product? For schools, what is the best product? And then they tell you, and then you make this. So it's a product. It's generic, but it's still a product. So that I can choose what products I want. Okay? So that I can calculate what is the carbon footprint. And I can calculate what is the cost for the plasterboard, for the installation. Here's the warning for manufacturers. That information will be available from all the different countries in Europe very fast. So if it's a difference between 1 square meter of 7 of this product somewhere, this will be transparent. Like it or not, it will, because this information will be shared by the contractors and the clients. So if you try to stop it, okay, but I think it will. So material cost, equipment cost, labor cost, AI, automation, what is the cost of something? So this is very often where we miss. How much does this road cost? So if we miss, we're doing a bad job. But with data, structured data, you can do this better. So that I can have a lot of models where I link to this wall type. So from this model, I can then extract from 200 projects how many square meters of that wall type. Was that understandable? This is not done. This is not done, okay? But this is kind of where I'm saying is that if you understand how important the data is, and we as an industry do not, but if you understand that, then this is the opportunity for manufacturers, contractors, clients, the whole market. This is the standardization work in SEN 442, Workgroup 4. I've just been talking about data templates. So for manufacturers or for anyone to have a market, you need to work via standardization. If your data is not aligned with the standard, I don't think that you will open the market. I don't think that architects or clients or contractors will succeed if they don't follow these standards. Because if you're doing something else, you are siloing down your information. You're not opening up your information. So control the information from any point of view is vital. This normally takes quite a lot of time, to be honest. And I have a guy called Espen Schulze, which is working with this from Cobuilder. So there are different work groups. So what I'm now going to be very fast, but I'm talking about this. So this is what I'll be talking about, this work group here. I think this one is important too, because it's talking about exchange of information using IFC. These are the standards. Data dictionary is important. So with the data dictionary, you get the machine code. So then the question is for the manufacturers here today, or anyone else, what dictionary do you use? The answer is, we don't use anyone. So that means that you don't have machine readable data. Sorry, you have machine readable data because you have grids, but it's your own silo data. So we need to use the common identifier. 1 and 2 needs to use the same. That one is very powerful for manufacturers. We say 5 countries. This is the data model for that product. That's a product that consists of, we did for work for Wienerberger. They have 150 attribute properties for a brick, external. And then they, I think, have 500 for a brick totally with internal data. And that's where you have to think how to structure this information across your business. But this is the standards I just showed. Number 1 was how to define a process on how to define all these things. So we have a lot of ways of saying length. I think if you search in our database, if you search on length, I think you find, I don't know, 200 lengths. Depends on what you're talking about. Width. What is width? Just an example with window. Width. An opening. When I install the window, I have an opening. That window has a defined way of measuring that in Europe. It's a standard on how to do that. The width of the window is very often what you order when I order a window. Then when I open the window, That is linked to the Spanish building regulation, escape with. If it's a fire, escape with. Then when I close the window, I have a glass opening with, which I use to calculate how much light which is coming into the window. So there's 4 different widths for a window. If I talk to people working in Autodesk, they have no clue what I'm talking about. Nothing. But in Europe, we have a common definition on how to talk about those widths. It's a Spanish standard. You can go to the standardization organization, you'll get it. With these properties, you have to have a lot of attributes. So in your database, you have to have all these attributes for one property. And this is the French BIM. That is, so when people say that's not a property, it could be because it only have a name and a definition. It has no GUID, it has no data type, it has no tolerance, it has no dimension. It's not a property. So it's very important to understand this process standard. This process standard includes experts. You have to have experts. And then standard number 2 is where you put those 2 together. So if I'm asking you, if I ask Hilti, what information do Hilti need so that I can order your product? So that means that you don't need 1 property, you need 2, 3, 4, 5 for the product. And from the model, you need how many square meters of wall, so you can calculate how much whatever I need, depending on what type of product it is. That is for the data people, Yuval, for this, and it explains. This is a construction object. This is a window. This is the standard. This is a group of property called geometric. This is the height. This is quantity, length. It's measured in millimeters. So all of this is used for machines to talk to machines. So that's where manufacturers need to link their data into that format. Someone said yes when you heard about 19650. One hand up. Anyone that have heard about ISO 19650? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5.
I translated to Spanish.
Okay. So is it in Spanish now?
It's now a draft in Spanish, and I think that will be published this month.
Okay. So for
we published in Smart Spain some weeks ago a kind of guideline for introduction to the 19650, but the final standard will be published tomorrow.
Okay. So we have the same route in Norway. So okay. Just very fast. It comes from UK, and this is funny. What's the history of UK? The history of UK is that they have, in many regions around the world, they have they have visited other areas like Spain used to. So they are working with the standards, and they're trying to spread these standards via ISO. To be honest, these standards were quite good. And I think they spent 50 million pounds from the government to create the PAS standards. That's a lot of money. So the government paid a lot of money to make digital standards, to move away from how we work today to a more digital way. I don't know if you've seen, I don't have time for all this, but I don't know if you've seen these slides. Now, from UK to ISO. I just want to show some slides, yeah. I don't have time for this, but what's important that this gives a language for all of Europe. And this is very important that we have the same language, so we talk in the same way. So when we talk about clients, we talk about appointing parties. So, appointing party. So, this is a language, so it's kind of a dictionary also for us to use. So when it's translated to Spanish, the whole industry can look at this and speak the same language. It's very, very important. And it also is talking about information exchange, how information is exchanged, drawings, models, information, documents. This standard has is also pointing at information requirements, information delivery planning, information delivery, information approval. So in this picture, where is the manufacturers? Where is the manufacturers? And that's where they are. They are there with their data, with their product data. At any given time, you are there with an existing building or a building that is going to be built. You're linked in there with the data, and that's where the data template is so important, so that it hooks into any time, any stage of. So this one, I don't know if anyone has seen this, but the new thing is let's say that the clients needs to be more educated. That's how I see it. In the UK, I had a meeting with 10 of the largest contractors 3 years ago with the PAS standards, and I asked, how many of you have got any organization information requirements from the clients that is owning the buildings? So, like, who installed that? When was it installed? What color is that? What product is, whatever. Do you have any information on that? So all the contractors say no, never heard about it. Never heard any clients. But now this has changed. So now clients, governmental clients, they're requiring information. They say that this and this and this is what I want. And that's a different thing. It takes time to do this implementation. I won't go into details, but all of these slides is very important. Here we're talking about documentation, non-geometrical information and geometrical information. That's the same as I showed in the digital twin, so that you distinguish between that. Stages, I don't know if you have building stages in Spain, like agreed stages, if you have that.
It's not a standard, but...
No, but it can be different. In the UK they use REBA stages, in Norway we use different approaches. Just this one. So that if the client knows what wall he wants, he says to the project, this is, I'm just taking the simplest use case ever here. This is the wall I want it like this. Then this is led at an early stage. You will tell via the value chain what you want. And this goes down the value chain, and this information is exchanged. So that means that when I install this, the screws that I use is of these characteristics. 1, 2, 3, check, boom, okay, it's checked, automated. I know exactly what screws I use on that wall. The plaster borders, the insulation, everything is checked. You can check anything. Automated. This is a spreadsheet just showing something. This is a contractor. This is the contractor I've been talking about. They're called NCC. That's the GS1 BuildingSmart work we're doing. That's a contractor that is sitting together with a manufacturer called Nordan. And they are discussing what data do we need to exchange. This is real. So this is what they're now doing. So they're using IFC. They use IFC to structure information on Windows. Okay? And then they use a data template to agree between the two what information do you need. They look at all these different properties, and then they agree. I use this property, that is not relevant. This one is relevant, that is not relevant. And then, what is used for planning, for pricing, and for delivering. So this is early stage now. This is in reality. So if you ask this contractor, do you want to go back? No way. No way on earth. Because this saves time. The manufacturer gets all the information he wants much, much earlier. They make an agreement which is 2 to 3 years ahead. It's a very strong thing for both of them. And the contractor and the manufacturer earns more money on both ends. It reduces risk. So, I mean, just understand how important that information part is vital. So then, now it's more like a manual process, I would say. But this is where within a year, I would guess, then it's more like automated. So then you can do a design, go to the contractor, go to the manufacturer, machine. And that is a huge change. They've done it now for, this is Windows, and I am now working with Saint-Gobain on walls, with all the products within the wall. So it's a massive change for them. I mentioned before that you have to have a high level when we do things. You have to think about not only your company, but think a little bit bigger. That's very important. If you think about environmental impact, facility, building owners, if you think a little bit bigger, then it's easier to have a success, I would say, than just focusing on your issues. Because we as an industry, we're very siloed. I'm just me. And I think that the digital way of doing things is actually sharing data, creating an agreement between, let's say, installation actors. So I'm talking to a lot of different companies doing installation, but they need a common language for installation. You should just, yeah, and they will, and they have, and I think actually they agree. You should have a common language. So that means that you shouldn't be fighting about that, but then after that, it's more normal. Then it's market fights. Thank you.